Let me tell you something, everybody want real until real shows up. And when it showed up, showed up, they weren't ready. See, the problem wasn't you. The problem was they couldn't handle your love, your loyalty, your consistency. Because ego don't like real. Ego wants control. Ego wants to win. Ego wants to be right, even if it means being alone. So they let you walk. Or maybe they pushed you away. Either way, they chose ego over effort. They chose silence over communication. They chose pride over apology. Ego is loud, but it's lonely. It speaks with authority like it knows everything, like it's in control. Ego walks into rooms looking for applause, not understanding that love doesn't clap, love listens. See, ego needs validation. It needs to be the smartest, the strongest, the most right, even when it's dead wrong. It stands tall in arguments, but it lies flat in relationships. Ego don't compromise. Ego don't apologize. Ego don't reach back when someone is reaching out. And because of that, ego ends up alone, wondering why the room is so quiet after it pushed everyone out. Ego is the reason people lose good things. It's the reason someone will sit in silence rather than say, I miss you. It's the reason someone will throw away a relationship because they didn't want to say 3 simple words. I was wrong. You could be the best thing that ever happened to someone, loyal, supportive, ride or die kind of love. And ego will still tell them, don't text back, don't call, let them sweat. But that same ego won't sit with them at night when they realize you ain't coming back. That's when the regret kicks in. When the ego finally gets quiet and it's just them in that silence they created. Ego wants to win, but it don't understand love isn't a competition. You don't win in love by being right. You win by being real. And real means sometimes you gotta be the first to say sorry, even if your pride is yelling, don't you dare. Real means putting your guard down, not to be weak, but to be seen. Ego can't handle that. Ego wants to be bulletproof. It wants to look unbothered, but real connection. That takes vulnerability. That takes humility. That takes dropping the act and saying, I need you. I value you. I don't want to lose you. And ego, it would rather lose you than say any of that out loud. You ever watch somebody let the best thing in their life walk away because they didn't want to look soft? That's ego. You ever love somebody so deeply and they keep pushing you away, not because they don't care, but because caring makes them feel exposed? That's ego too. It creates this illusion that love makes you weak, but it's a lie. It's ego that's weak. Love, real love, that's strength. It takes guts to love. It takes courage to stay. It takes bravery to show up again and again for someone, especially when your past taught you to run. But ego is the coward that wears a mask. It looks like confidence, but it's fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen too clearly. Fear of letting someone too close only to get hurt again. So instead of trying, ego builds walls. And here's the worst part. Ego don't even realize it's building a prison. Brick by brick, with every grudge, every unspoken apology, every missed chance to connect. Ego is just putting itself further and further away from peace. And one day it looks around and notices that the people who loved it, the people who tried, they're all gone. And that applause it was chasing, it echoes now, hollow. When ego makes the decisions, it feels powerful at first. It feels like you're in control, like you're protecting yourself. You're teaching somebody a lesson by being distant or dismissive. But there's no lesson in silence, there's only loss. And the sad thing is, most people don't realize what they lost until they're sitting in the middle of it. They don't realize how rare your love was until it's not answering their texts. They don't realize how solid your support was until they're going through something and can't call you. Because ego blocked the number. Ego burned the bridge. Ego told them you'd always come back. But you didn't. You grew. You healed. You moved on. And now they sit in that empty space trying to figure out how it got like this. And deep down they know. They know it was ego. They know they could have picked communication over control. They know they could have picked honesty over pride. But they didn't, and now all they have is memories and a mouthful of words they should have said when they had the chance. Because here's the thing about ego, it don't show you what you lost until it's too late. And when it finally does, it's loud again, but in a different way. It's not boasting anymore, it's screaming, it's begging, it's trying to rewind time. But love don't live in rewind. Love lives in the now. And ego never learned how to live in the now. So they sit in regret. Not because they didn't love you, but because they didn't love you right. They let ego speak louder than their heart, louder than their truth, louder than your presence. and now the silence is deafening. That's the cost of letting ego lead. It's a loud, lonely ride to nowhere. And when it drops you off, all you can do is sit with what's left: memories, mistakes, echo of a love that could have been everything. You were the blessing they prayed for, but ego made them fumble it. They were on their knees, asking the universe, asking God, asking life for something real. Send me someone who gets me. Send me someone who won't leave. Someone who can love me through my broken pieces. Someone who'll hold it down when things get rough. Someone who won't just talk it, but live it. And then boom, you walked in. Not with flash, not with noise, just with truth, with consistency, with love that didn't have to shout to be felt. You weren't loud, you were steady. You weren't perfect, but you were present. You weren't asking for the world, just a little space to love them right. And for a moment, they felt it, they knew it. Deep in their spirit, they recognized what they had. But see, ego don't know how to handle answered prayers. Ego don't know how to accept softness when it's used to war. Ego don't know what to do with peace when all it's ever known is pain. So instead of leaning into you, they leaned into fear, into pride, into defense mechanisms dressed up as independence. They saw your loyalty and they questioned it. They saw your consistency and they tested it. They saw your softness and they mistook it for weakness. Because when someone's not healed, real love feels suspicious. It feels like a setup. It feels like there's no way this person is for real. So they push. They pull away, they self-sabotage, not because you weren't enough, but because you were everything. And when someone doesn't feel worthy, they don't trust the blessing. They don't receive it, they run from it. You came with truth. You came with intention. You were solid in a world full of shaky. You were open in a time where everybody's guarded. You made effort look easy and love feel safe. But ego said, you don't need this. You're good on your own. Don't get too close. Don't let them see too much. Don't say how you really feel. Ego whispered lies that sounded like confidence. You're better off without them. They'll leave anyway. Don't give them that power. But ego was scared, and scared people ruin good things. So they fumbled you, not because they didn't care, but because ego cared more about being in control than being in connection. Ego said, they'll always be there. So they took you for granted. Ego said, you're too busy to deal with this now. So they kept you waiting. Ego said, you don't need to say sorry. So they let misunderstandings grow into distance. And by the time ego got quiet, by the time reality hit and pride stepped aside, you were gone. You were done. You were healing. You were outgrowing the cycle. And now they sit there wondering how they let someone like you slip away. Because deep down, they remember the way you showed up. They remember the late night calls where you poured life into them. The way you saw past their surface and straight into their soul. The way you believed in their dreams more than they believed in themselves. You didn't just love them, you invested in them. You didn't just show up, you stayed even when things got heavy, even when it wasn't easy. You gave them what they said they wanted and they didn't know how to hold it. Prayed for real, but ego doesn't know how to handle real. Real love holds up a mirror. It reflects everything, not just the good. Real love shows you where you need to grow, where you're still bleeding, where the healing hasn't reached yet. And instead of embracing that, they ran. They let pride build walls where there should have been doors. They let fear lead when they should have followed love. But now the dust has settled. Now the silence is loud. Now they're scrolling through your old messages. Now they're rereading the things you said that didn't make sense back then, but hit different now. Now they realize that you were rare, that you were the one who didn't play games, that you were the one who meant what you said, that you were the one who stayed solid when everything around them was shaky. You were the blessing, the one they asked for in broken moments, the one they dreamed about but weren't ready to receive. And ego made them believe they had time, that you'd always be there, that they could take and take without ever pouring back. But you weren't built to be drained. You weren't born to beg for the love you so freely gave. So you left, and now they sit in the aftermath, not just of losing you, but of losing the version of themselves that felt alive when they were with you. They chose ego over effort. They chose silence over growth. They chose fear over faith. And now they live with the echo of the blessing they fumbled, a blessing they may never see again, not like you. Not with that kind of heart, not with that kind of depth. You were the one they just weren't ready. Don't chase people who need to heal. You can't fix what someone refuses to admit is broken. You could pour all your love into them, offer them peace, offer them presence, offer them patience. But if they're not ready to face their wounds, it won't matter. They'll mistake your love for pressure. They'll confuse your care for control. They'll feel smothered by what was meant to save them. Because when someone hasn't made peace with their past, they turn the present into a battlefield, even if you come with no weapons. You can't heal someone who still calls their pain personality. You can't reach someone who's built an identity around their trauma. They'll defend their damage before they ever try to repair it. They'll hold on to their survival tactics like trophies, even if those same habits are destroying every chance at love they get. And you'll sit there trying to convince them that there's a better way, that they deserve peace. That love doesn't have to hurt, but they won't hear you. Not because you're not speaking truth, but because truth sounds like noise when someone's been living in lies. See, when you love someone who hasn't healed, you end up negotiating with their pain. You find yourself apologizing for triggers you didn't create. You walk on eggshells around their past. You shrink yourself trying to fit into the broken spaces they haven't cleaned out. You try to overcompensate, thinking if you just love them a little harder, be a little more patient, take on a little more of their burden, maybe they'll come around. Maybe they'll soften. Maybe they'll choose to heal. But healing isn't something you can do for someone else. It's an inside job. You could hold up every mirror in the world, but if they're not ready to look, they'll break the mirror before they ever face the reflection. And you'll be left holding the pieces, bleeding from wounds that weren't yours in the first place. Because people who are unhealed don't just hurt themselves. They hurt the people closest to them, not always out of malice, but out of habit, out of fear, out of the twisted belief that pushing people away is safer than being seen. It's not your job to rescue someone who keeps choosing drowning. It's not your mission to turn yourself into a lifeboat for someone who refuses to swim. And yes, it's hard, especially when you see their potential, when you see who they could be without the pain, without the pride, without the emotional armor. But potential is just a picture, and you can't date a picture. You can't build a future on could be. You need now. You need ready. You need willing. Otherwise, always be stuck trying to prove yourself to someone who doesn't even believe in themselves. Don't chase after people who push you away. Don't water someone's garden if they keep pulling up the roots. Don't give your soul to someone who won't even acknowledge their scars. Because love is not a rehabilitation center. You're not here to play therapist or healer or savior. You're here to be loved right, to be met with effort, honesty, and emotional accountability. And if someone can't give you that, it's not your cue to try harder. It's your cue to let go. Let them do the work. Let them face their darkness. Let them sit in the silence they created. Maybe one day they'll rise. Maybe one day they'll understand. But your job isn't to wait in pain while they figure out how to love. Your job is to keep walking in light, to keep choosing peace, to keep showing up for yourself. Because chasing someone who needs to heal often ends with you breaking yourself, trying to hold them together. You deserve more than almost. You deserve more than own day. You deserve more than being a mirror for someone who refuses to see. So stop chasing, stop fixing, stop carrying. Let them go, not with bitterness, but with truth, with clarity, with peace. Because healing isn't something you can force, and love isn't something you should have to beg for. Silence is louder than revenge. You don't have to scream. You don't have to clap back. You don't have to prove anything. The most powerful thing you can do after someone wrongs you, after someone fumbles your love, after someone chooses ego, pride, or betrayal over loyalty, is to say nothing at all. Not because you're weak, but because you've grown. Because you've reached a place where your energy is too valuable to waste on people who never deserve front row seats to your life in the first place. Revenge is noisy. It's messy. It's ego-driven. It wants to be seen. It wants to hurt back. It wants to make them feel what they made you feel. But here's the truth. People already feel it. Whether they show it or not, whether they admit it or not, the moment they see you not chasing, not begging, not explaining, that's when the regret starts breathing. That's when they realize the gravity of what they lost. Because silence echoes in the spaces they thought you'd always fill. Silence makes them sit with themselves. And some people ain't built for that. They're not ready to hear their own thoughts, face their own mistakes, or acknowledge how bad they messed up. And that's exactly what your silence does. It holds up a mirror they can't ignore. You don't need to get even. You don't need to throw dirt, expose secrets, match their disrespect. You just need to live well. You just need to rise. You just need to build the life they didn't believe in without them. Because the real revenge, it's becoming untouchable. It's being so healed, so unbothered, so blessed that their name doesn't even trigger a reaction anymore. That's the kind of peace they can't disturb. That's the kind of glow they can't dim. That's the kind of success they have to watch from a distance, knowing they had a seat and gave it up. Let your peace do the talking. Let your healing be the headline. Let your absence be the consequence. Because when someone expects you to fight, to yell, to act out, and instead you give them nothing, it confuses their ego, it starves it. And in that starvation, they start to see you clearly. The things they once took for granted start to hit differently. The way you listened, the way you showed up, the way you held space for their chaos without ever making it your own. They remember, and in their silence, your silence gets louder. They scroll your page now not to support, but to feel. They watch your stories not out of curiosity, but out of guilt. They hear your name and feel a pinch in their chest, not because you said anything, but because you didn't. Because you chose growth over games. Because you chose purpose over petness. Because you chose to elevate instead of retaliate. That's a different level of maturity. A different kind of power, not the kind that needs attention, the kind that attracts it naturally. Your glow up becomes undeniable. Your peace becomes visible. And your energy becomes so clean, it exposes everything toxic about theirs without you even opening your mouth. You become a walking reminder of what they lost, not because you flaunted it, but because you became it. So let them talk. Let them assume. Let them twist the narrative if they want to. Because people who need to lie about you in order to feel better about themselves are already at war with the truth. You don't need to fight that battle. Time always reveals who's real. Time always exposes who was genuine and who was just loud. And in time, they'll realize the silence you gave them wasn't indifference. It was closure. The kind they weren't ready for. The kind that doesn't come with an explanation. The kind that says, I'm done, without saying a word. So stand tall in that silence, glow without apology, heal without announcement, and let them sit with everything they did while you build everything they'll never get access to again. You didn't lose them. They lost themselves. They didn't walk away with a prize. They didn't win anything when they chose ego, pride, and silence over the real, raw, rare love you gave. All they did was distance themselves from the one person who saw them beyond the surface, the one who stayed when others walked away. The one who gave them space to be flawed, broken, messy, and still believed in their potential. You never lost someone like that. They lost someone like you. And that's the kind of loss that life doesn't let you forget. See, the truth is you were the safe space, the calm in their storm, the anchor they didn't even know they needed. You didn't come with conditions. You came with consistency. You didn't ask them to be perfect. You asked them to be present. You didn't judge them by their pain. You tried to help them heal from it. You gave them what most people are still praying for, real love, real loyalty, real effort. And somehow they still chose to let it go. Not because you weren't enough, but because they weren't ready. Because they didn't recognize the value of what they had when it was right in front of them. They didn't lose you. They lost access to you. They lost access to your energy, your loyalty, your presence, your prayers, your patience. They lost access to someone who loved them through confusion, through silence, through every red flag their own behavior was waving. You didn't walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because they stopped showing up. Because every time they had the chance to choose you, they chose pride. Every time they could have said, I'm sorry, they chose distance. Every time they felt vulnerable, they covered it with attitude. And in the end, that's what cost them everything, because anyone who picks ego over love is already on a losing team. Ego don't build homes. Ego don't build futures. Ego don't hold your hand in the middle of the night when the world gets too heavy. Ego don't listen. Ego don't grow. Ego isolates. Ego competes. Ego tries to win arguments and loses people in the process. They thought they were protecting themselves, standing their ground, keeping control. But what they were really doing was pushing away the very thing they asked life for. And now they're left with the echo of your laughter they once took for granted, the echo of your support they once dismissed, The echo of your love, pure, patient, powerful, that they couldn't hold on to. Because ego isn't equipped for real love. Ego needs to be right more than it wants to be whole. Ego looks at love like it's a competition, not a commitment. And when you love with your whole heart, when you lead with softness and strength, when you bring peace into chaos, you don't lose, you evolve, you grow. You learn to protect your energy. You learn that losing people who can't love you properly isn't loss. It's liberation. They'll try to convince themselves it was mutual, that you just grew apart, that it just wasn't meant to be. But deep down they know you were willing to fight for it. They know you were ready to build. They know you showed up in ways most people never do. And what they lost wasn't just a relationship, it was a reflection. A reflection of the kind of love they could have had if they had just chosen humility over pride, communication over games, effort over ego. So no, don't carry the burden of that goodbye like it was your fault. Don't second guess your worth just because they couldn't receive it. Don't question your love just because they didn't know how to hold it. You didn't lose them. They lost the version of themselves they could have become by loving you right. You gave them the blueprint for real connection, the map to emotional maturity. And instead of following it, they set fire to it. That's not on you. That's on them. And one day, maybe in the quiet moments, maybe in the middle of a lonely night, they'll remember how it felt to be seen by you, supported by you, cared for in ways they didn't even know they needed. And that memory, that's where the real loss lies. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about who leaves first. It's about who shows up. And you showed up. You were real. You were ready. They weren't. And that's a loss they'll carry long after you've healed. Your comeback is the plot twist. They thought they had you figured out. Thought you'd fall apart. Thought losing them would break you, make you spiral, make you question your worth. They assumed they were the best thing in your life, like their presence validated your existence. The real truth, their absence made room for your elevation, because while they sit in regret, stuck in the same cycles, scrolling through your old photos, trying to remember what peace felt like when it was attached to your name, you're rising in purpose. You didn't just bounce back, you rebuilt powerfully, with intention, with clarity, with that unshakable grace that can only come after surviving betrayal, silence, abandonment, and still choosing to keep your heart open. You took every tear, every moment of confusion, every "why wasn't I enough?" and turned it into fuel. Fuel for your growth, fuel for your glow, fuel for the version of you that doesn't wait to be chosen, because now you choose yourself. Let your life preach. Let your peace speak louder than any explanation ever could. You don't need to defend yourself to people who misunderstood your heart. You don't need to clear the air with those who polluted it in the first place. You are the message now. You're the testimony. Every step you take forward, every goal you hit, every moment of joy they thought you'd never have without them, that's the sermon. That's the redemption arc. That's the plot twist they never saw coming. Because the same people who dismissed you now have to watch you become everything you were trying to build with them. And they'll realize too late, you weren't just a good thing, you were the blessing. You were the one who brought vision, light, balance. And now that they've lost access to your energy, they're starting to feel the emptiness they tried to blame on you. But here's the twist. You were never the chaos. You were the calm trying to love someone addicted to storms. And while they replay your last conversation, you're out here having first-time experiences. While they sit in circles of people who only hype up their ego, you're surrounding yourself with people who water your growth. You're aligned now. You're walking in a different kind of power. The kind that doesn't need revenge. The kind that doesn't post every move for validation. The kind that glows from the inside out because it's rooted in purpose, not performance. That's the real comeback. Not loud, not messy. Focused, peaceful, intentional. You're not chasing closure anymore. You're creating your own clarity. You're not stuck in the what ifs. You're invested in what's next. Because the comeback isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were never broken, just buried. And now that you've bloomed, they don't even recognize the version of you that walked out of that pain. They see you shining and assume it happened overnight. What they don't see is the nights you cried yourself to sleep but still got up the next day. The times you wanted to go back but reminded yourself what you deserve. The days you had to sit with your own reflection and decide to choose healing over hate. That's what built this version of you. Not spite, resilience, not revenge, rebirth. So don't say a word. Let your consistency do the talking. Let your discipline tell the story. Let your joy speak volumes. Because every time you rise, you teach. Every time you smile without bitterness, you teach. Every time you keep walking when you could have lashed out, you teach. That's how your life becomes the message. And you better believe they're watching and wondering how you did it. How you turned the very thing that was meant to break you into your breakthrough. How you turned pain into peace and grief into growth. That's the twist they never expected. That losing you wouldn't just change your life, it would change theirs. But by the time they realize it, you'll be so far gone, so elevated, so aligned, that even if they called, you wouldn't answer from the same place. You're not bitter. You're better. You're not trying to go back. You're building forward. Because your comeback was never about revenge. It was about redirection. And now your life is the proof. The proof that healing is louder than hate. That peace is stronger than pride. And that purpose will always have the last word.